The moment that changed James Wilson's life forever came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, when a stranger's desperate whisper turned his quiet cup of tea into the beginning of something extraordinary. If you've ever believed that fate works in mysterious ways, this story will touch your heart and remind you why connections between people can happen when we least expect them. If this story moves you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more heartwarming tales of unexpected kindness. James stared into his cup of Earl Grey, watching the steam rise in lazy curls above the chipped porcelain. The cafe buzzed with the gentle hum of conversation and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine, but James barely registered any of it. At 42, with tired eyes and premature silver threading through his dark hair, he had mastered the art of being alone in a crowded room. 6 months had passed since Emma, his 12-year-old daughter, had started spending weekdays with her mother following the divorce. The custody arrangement left James with a hollowness that no amount of overtime at the architectural firm could fill. Tuesdays were the worst, the middle point of his 5-day stretch without Emma's laughter filling their apartment. "Excuse me," came a soft, trembling voice. James looked up to find an elderly woman standing beside his table. She was elegantly dressed in a powder blue suit that had seen better days, her silver hair swept into a neat bun. Her eyes, a striking shade of hazel, held a strange mixture of desperation and determination. "I'm sorry to disturb you," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I need your help. My daughter is about to walk through that door with a man I cannot stand to see her with. He's controlling, manipulative," her voice caught. "Please, would you pretend to be my daughter's fiancé? Just for a few minutes." James blinked, certain he had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" The woman's eyes darted nervously toward the door. "My name is Eleanor Harrington. My daughter, Catherine, is 38 and about to make the biggest mistake of her life. I've tried telling her, but she won't listen to me. If she sees you, someone successful, kind, maybe she'll realize what she deserves." Before James could formulate a response, the bell above the cafe door chimed. Eleanor's grip on her handbag tightened. "Please," she whispered urgently. "I wouldn't ask if I weren't desperate." Perhaps it was the raw emotion in her voice, or maybe it was the fact that James recognized the look of a parent willing to do anything to protect their child. Whatever the reason, he found himself nodding. "What do I need to know?" he asked quietly. Relief flooded Eleanor's face. "Your name is Michael. You're an architect. You proposed 3 months ago, but we've been keeping it quiet. You're joining me for tea to discuss wedding venues." James almost smiled at the coincidence, he actually was an architect. Before he could point this out, Eleanor was waving enthusiastically toward the door. "Catherine, darling. Over here." A tall woman with chestnut hair and her mother's hazel eyes approached their table. Beside her walked a man with slicked back hair and an expensive suit that somehow still managed to look cheap. His hand rested possessively on the small of Catherine's back. "Mom?" Catherine's confusion was evident as she took in the scene before her. "I thought you were meeting me alone." Eleanor beamed. "I wanted to surprise you. Michael was in the neighborhood and decided to join me." She turned to James with such convincing affection that for a moment, even he believed they shared a history. "Michael, this is my daughter, Catherine, and her friend, Richard." James stood, extending his hand first to Catherine. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Your mother talks about you constantly." Catherine's handshake was firm, her expression a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "Funny, she's never mentioned you." "That's because we've been keeping things quiet," Eleanor interjected smoothly. "Michael and I wanted to be sure before making any announcements." Richard's eyes narrowed as he reluctantly shook James's hand. "Announcements about what, exactly?" Eleanor's smile widened. "Michael has asked me to help plan his wedding. He and his fiancée are getting married in the spring." James watched as Catherine's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Wedding? Mom, What are you talking about? Eleanor patted the empty chair beside her. Sit down, darling. I'll explain everything. What followed was the most surreal 30 minutes of James's life. Eleanor wove an elaborate tale about how she and Michael had met at a charity auction 6 months ago, how he had been looking for the perfect venue for his wedding, and how Eleanor's experience planning events had made them fast friends. Throughout the conversation, James caught Catherine studying him with increasing interest. Richard, meanwhile, grew more agitated by the minute, his hand never leaving Catherine's arm. So, Michael, Richard finally interrupted, his voice dripping with skepticism. What firm did you say you work for? Foster and Associates, James replied truthfully. I specialize in sustainable urban development. Catherine's eyebrows rose. That's impressive. I actually wrote an article about green architecture for the Tribune last year. Catherine is a journalist, Eleanor explained proudly. Award-winning, in fact. Mom, please, Catherine murmured, though James could see she was pleased by her mother's praise. No, that's genuinely impressive, James said, his interest no longer feigned. I'd love to read your work sometime. Richard's grip on Catherine's arm tightened visibly. We should go. We have dinner reservations at 7. But we just got here, Catherine protested. Plans change, Richard replied curtly. Besides, I'm sure Michael and your mother have wedding details to discuss. The look that passed between mother and daughter spoke volumes, concern from Eleanor, a flash of realization from Catherine. Actually, Catherine said slowly, I'd like to hear more about these wedding plans. She turned to James. Tell me about your fiancé. How did you propose? James hesitated, his mind racing. Then, almost without thinking, he began to speak about Emma, not as his daughter, but as if she were the woman he loved. He described her curiosity, her kindness, her ability to find wonder in the smallest things. He talked about their Sunday morning pancake tradition and how she could always tell when he was having a bad day. As he spoke, he realized he was describing not just the daughter he adored, but the kind of partnership he hoped she would find someday. She sounds wonderful, Catherine said softly when he finished. There was something in her eyes now, a question, perhaps, or a dawning understanding. Richard checked his watch ostentatiously. Catherine, we really need to go. You know what? Catherine said, her voice stronger than before. I think I'll stay a bit longer. You go ahead. The silence that followed was electric. Richard's face darkened. We came together, we leave together. Actually, Catherine replied, meeting his gaze steadily, I came to see my mother. And I'd like to stay. For a moment, James thought Richard might argue further. Instead, he stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Fine. Call me when you're done playing Happy Families. After Richard stormed out, the three of them sat in silence until Catherine finally spoke. He's not usually like that, she said, though her tone suggested she didn't entirely believe her own words. Eleanor reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. Darling, he's exactly like that. Every time. Catherine didn't pull away. I know, she whispered. I just didn't want to see it. She turned to James, a small, embarrassed smile on her lips. So, I'm guessing you're not actually engaged to anyone? James shook his head. No, but everything else I said was true. I am an architect. And I do have a daughter named Emma who means the world to me. I'm so sorry for involving you in this, Eleanor began, but James waved away her apology. Don't be. Sometimes we all need a little help seeing things clearly. What began as an elaborate ruse transformed, over cups of cooling tea, into an honest conversation. Catherine spoke about her relationship with Richard, how it had started promisingly but gradually became more controlling. Eleanor shared her fears, not with judgment but with love. And James found himself talking about his divorce, his struggles as a single father, and his determination to show Emma what healthy relationships should look like. As the cafe began to close around them, Catherine turned to James with genuine curiosity. "Why did you agree to help my mother with this unusual request?" James considered the question carefully. "I think, because someday Emma might need someone to step in and help her see something she can't. And I'd want that person to say yes." 2 weeks later, James was back at the same cafe, this time with Emma, enjoying their Saturday morning together. He was in the middle of helping her with her science project when the bell above the door chimed. "Dad," Emma whispered, nudging him. "That lady is staring at you." James looked up to find Catherine standing by the counter, a genuine smile lighting up her face when their eyes met. Beside her stood Eleanor, looking considerably more relaxed than the last time he'd seen her. "James," Catherine said, approaching their table. "I hoped we might run into you here." Introductions were made, and soon Emma was deep in conversation with Eleanor about her science project, a model demonstrating urban water conservation that had impressed both women. "She's remarkable," Catherine said, watching Emma explain her design to Eleanor. "You must be very proud." "Every day," James replied. "How are you doing?" Catherine's smile turned reflective. "Better. I ended things with Richard. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary." She paused. "Your story, about Emma, about wanting to show her what healthy relationships look like, it stayed with me." Their conversation flowed easily, and when Eleanor suggested that Emma might enjoy the science exhibition at the Natural History Museum, it seemed only natural that all four of them should go together. As they walked through the museum, James found himself sharing stories of his own childhood visits there with Catherine, while Eleanor and Emma moved ahead, deep in conversation about butterfly migration patterns. "She doesn't have many older women in her life," James explained, watching his daughter gesture animatedly. "Her mother's parents live overseas, and my mother passed away before Emma was born." "Mom has always had a way with children," Catherine replied. "She was an elementary school teacher for 30 years. She says it kept her young." By the time they parted ways that afternoon, phone numbers had been exchanged and a tentative plan made for dinner the following weekend.